Hello, Fruit Force. Once again, this is Captain Fruit reporting for duty, and today I'm talking about Batwoman. Can it be saved? Is there a chance? Is it canceled already without even making it to Season 2? Well, let's explore that a little bit. And to the dangers of diving into ideology and politics over substance and story. You know, this is once again a thing that makes me sad because I think this, just like Supergirl, had a lot of potential. But unfortunately, they dived right into identity politics, shoving it in your face, in spite of actually developing a story. If they would have focused more on story and characterization, this could have been a lot better. Once again, a common mistake of focusing on traits that nobody cares about. Nobody cares, really, that, we don't need shoved in our face so much that she's a woman. We know Batwoman's a woman. We don't need so much focus on that. Put the focus on her being a hero, her characterization, not her sexuality, and not her choice of sexuality, if you will. And this show is falling down the same pit and the same problem that's led Supergirl to the massive drop in ratings and numbers continuously as well. And at least Supergirl had a chance because it didn't start on the CW with as much of a feminine push. It had a little bit, but not the first season, not as much. And then after that, when it shifted to the CW, it went major SJW. They might as well call that channel SJW. So let's look at Batwoman's ratings before you jump all over me and go, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And all this. So we'll talk about that. Here we go. Now, yes, you would expect the first episode to get the biggest draw, but then you're going to see how much it retains, and that's the really serious part there, especially if towards the end of a season. So if we look here on the 10/6/19, the very first episode on the 18 to 49 demographic, the biggest demographic they care about because that's who they're advertising to, in particular, had a 0.47 with viewers at 1.860 million. But then by the 13th, the second episode aired, and it had in the demo 0.35. That's a significant drop in that demo. That's where they really care. That's where the money is for them. And once again, the viewers dropped. So it dropped by 22.04%. Then by the time we got to the third episode on the 20th, okay, so just a couple weeks later, that demo was at a 0.30. Once again, it dropped again in that very, very important 18 to 49 demo, which is a 14.29% drop, leaving the viewers at 1.221, which is another shift from the previous week of negative 15.79%, which in other words, we're showing a steady decline. Unless the show gets something that's going to give it a bump, get people interested, which we might see with the big story linking arc coming up, this show could be off to a very rough start and a very short run. Could be a one-seasoner. Because if we look here, the season averages at 0.37 for the 18 to 49 demo. Now, granted, that's not really a fair assessment right now because it's a steady drop. And if you look, that average doesn't really represent that very well because there's only 3 episodes. So if we take out the high, we take out the low, we're at a 0.35. At the median, it's probably a better, more accurate depiction right now. But based on the trends, we could probably expect this to drop another 10% to 13% for the next episode. Okay. Now, before you jump on me and say, well, you've done predictions like this before, well, let's compare this to one of the big CW channel shows here. Okay, at least they claim it is. And it is for CW, but CW doesn't expect much for ratings, evidently. They don't care as much. They accept lower rating shows because people love to tell me this all the time about the ratings of this show. So look at this. The CW is less of a slave to ratings than other broadcast networks, but viewership numbers are still important. Absolutely, and I've been saying this for a long time. While the network hasn't canceled any of its live-action superhero shows yet, except for Arrow. People don't want to admit it canceled, but let's be honest here, okay? The ratings were continuously dropping, and then when it's time for the new contract, there's new contract negotiations for how much to be paid, and if you're not willing to take that, then they have to cancel the show. Newsflash, people leaving the show isn't usually, it means it was canceled because there wasn't an agreement in pay with situations. It wasn't enough money to make it for the star of the show to decide to continue doing it. So keep that in mind. This season does mark the final chapter of Arrow, so clearly even every hero tale has limited shelf life. Well, have a ton we can have there. But I think Supergirl has been lucky to survive. It should have been already canceled. Once again, this show had a tremendous possibility that was absolutely squandered. When it shifted to the CW after its first season, it changed its focus way too much. It says, oops, you got to love the advertising and the jump here. Let's switch back to there. Oh, got advertisement popping up. Pardon me about that, people. Sorry about that. All right, says the ratings are typically the best indication of a show's likelihood to stay on the air. The higher the ratings, particularly in the 18 to 49 demo, as I've already said, the better chances of survival. This chart will be updated. So we look at this here, and we look at on the 10/6. The first episode of season 5 had a 0.37 for 18 to 49, which was still a significant drop from the last season by 17.78% in that demo. Think about that, 17.78% in the demo it was aiming for, with 1.263 million viewers. The viewer change was a drop of 17%. Let's compare that once again to Batwoman here. Batwoman here had a 0.47 in the demo with 1.86, and that's its big debut. Big debut, not great. Now, this is like one of the top, Supergirl is one of the top 5 performers for CW, so people love to throw that in my face. Well, they aren't going to get rid of it. I got a newsflash. That low of numbers in top 5 is not good for your channel. What you have to wonder is, how's the rest of the channel doing? And they have to consider that too. Sometimes they have to do whole major shifts and guts of everything they're playing. So these bad performers could gut the whole DC CW universe, if you will, if it doesn't shape up. But I look at by the second episode of Supergirl, on episode 2 of season 5, it drops from 0.37 to 0.26, which is almost a 30% demo drop. Almost 30%. Look at from the previous season, the first episode, 17.78, then 29.73% drop. That's overall viewers too, 23%, over 23% down. Then by the third episode, down in the demo to 0.20, which is another 23% drop, bringing the millions of viewers to 0.922, very, very low, with another 4.95% drop. Now, one only could speculate what that drop was. I think a lot of it could be people were off-put by the character changes that they've been seeing. They maybe don't like the new outfit idea. They just don't like where the season's going. They checked it out and they're like, I'm giving up on this. That might have been the final nail in the coffin. It's like, that's not our Supergirl. That doesn't look like Supergirl. The costume, to be fair, is very unappealing. It needs more red. Maybe it needs a little bit more yellow. I'm not sitting there saying, we have to, it's because of pants and all that. You know what? Yeah, it would have helped to maybe kept the iconic skirt, the iconic look that people recognize Supergirl for. Absolutely sure with that. But even though, if they did change with the pants, maybe spruce it up a little bit, because the costume looks incredibly boring, and a superhero cannot look boring. And this is a key thing. You could see this, and this was a common trend in comic books. You look at a comic book series, and when they were running out of gas, the series was diving in numbers. They usually introduced a new costume, a new switch to hope to pump it up, and that's what we're seeing here. And if people like that new costume, it gave maybe appeal when they seen it on a cover of a comic book, or in this case, a poster or an advertisement on TV. And they go, I'm going to check that out. But I can't see this outfit making people, that outfit looks cool. This might be a cool show. What am I missing? And as well as the background cast is just, they've not been used very good. I mean, her sister, people didn't like how they abruptly changed it. They had a lot going with the Maxwell Lord situation, and then they switched her completely on the turn of a dime, which didn't make any sense, really, with her orientation. John Jones is probably the most interesting character right now in the show, as well as, how can I say this? The wonderful photographer turned into now editor-in-chief, and now no longer editor-in-chief, Jimmy Olsen. Even though he wasn't really the Jimmy Olsen from the comic books, he was one of the more interesting characters of the show. But otherwise, we don't have a whole lot of interest there. And they don't help also that they turn off half of the population, because males, they just pretty much bash males consistently in this show. Girl power! Whereas they should have, sure, she's female and things, but once again, put the focus on the character, not her gender, and not her sex, and not the character's sexuality. Those are only parts of a character. They're not what keeps us interested. What keeps us interested is cool stories, good storylines. Matter of fact, you want to see that? Look at Supernatural. Look at how long Supernatural has went, and why? Because people are not tuning in necessarily because of their sexuality. They're not pumping that all the time. What they care about is the story, and that's what's kept them so long. And these CW shows, superhero shows, need to take a look at that. So my thoughts is, if Batwoman gets a season 2, it's going to be a mercy pass, right? But it's not looking great. They need to shape up the series. They need some injection of excitement, and that could be with the big crossover event, may give them that. But if not, we may be seeing the end of the CW as it is, because we got Legends of Tomorrow. They're not faring well either, faring very poorly. And once again, they did the same thing. They started with a fun little bit of a very cheeky kind of storyline, less stressful, that kind of thing, just a little bit more fun. And then they switched it to the whole SJW route, focusing on sexuality and political agenda, and that really turned off a lot of viewers. Their numbers shot down pretty significantly as well. So they've just done a lot of shooting themselves in the foot. But that's my thoughts, not yours. What are your thoughts on this subject? I would really like to hear it. Do you think Batwoman's going to make it? Do you think Superwoman's only been getting a pass because they have the agenda to push? How have they made it this far? Also, if you want to help this channel, be sure to hit like, subscribe, hit that notifications bell for me, and leave a comment below. That's one of the best ways you can help out, get this show to go in the analytics. Also, if you want, we have a Subscribe Star, a Patreon where you can help out, or even just a link for a one-time donation, or even a Redbubble where you can buy t-shirts and clocks and anything, just about coffee cups and things like that. And I put the prices as low as they would allow, so that way I don't put too much burden on you, but you can still help the channel. All right, well, thank you. Until next time, keep it frugal.